Jacob Fatu framed by Solo Sikoa in heartbreaking WWE RAW twist. Solo Sikoa has crossed the line, and Jacob Fatu is paying the price. What really happened in that car crash on Raw? In this explosive WWE storyline breakdown, we uncover the shocking events on WWE RAW where Jacob Fatu finds himself at the center of a devastating accusation, framed by none other than Solo Sikoa for a mysterious car crash that shook the locker room. Was it a setup? What is Solo Sikoa's endgame? And how will this impact the future of the Bloodline? What would you do if the brother who stood beside you in battle was the same one who placed the knife in your back? If everything you believed about loyalty, about family, was turned inside out in the blink of a violent, orchestrated moment? That's the question haunting Jacob Fatu tonight. A man who has always lived by the code of blood. A warrior. A savage. A loyal Bloodline soldier, now branded a criminal in a twisted betrayal staged for the world to see. And it wasn't the police, or the WWE boardroom, or the locker room that betrayed him. It was the one person no one ever suspected, Solo Sikoa. This isn't just a storyline. It's a fracture in the very foundation of the Bloodline itself. The night began like any other chaotic episode of Monday Night Raw. Tensions were high backstage. Rumors had been swirling that a major shakeup was coming. Cameras caught snippets of arguments behind closed doors, Sami Zayn storming past catering, Heyman looking more flustered than usual, and whispers that Roman Reigns had gone dark again. But what no one expected was the sound of metal twisting, glass shattering, and screams echoing through the corridor of the arena. A black SUV had slammed violently into a production truck near the loading dock. Security rushed. Officials yelled. And then, they saw him. A body, bloody, unconscious, twisted on the pavement beside the wreckage. It was Jimmy Uso, and the timing? Convenient. Too convenient. Just minutes before the crash, Jacob Fatu had stormed out of a tense meeting with Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman. Words were exchanged. Cameras weren't allowed in the room, but the walls have ears. Someone heard Jacob yelling about respect. About being done with games. And about Solo not being the only one with family power anymore. Moments later, Solo was seen on his phone, his voice calm, eerily calm, and just like that, Jimmy Uso was taken away on a stretcher. But what came next turned confusion into catastrophe. Surveillance footage from the parking garage leaked to WWE officials showed a figure matching Jacob Fatu's silhouette stepping into the SUV moments before the crash. The footage was grainy. The lighting was poor. But the jacket? The long hair? The gait? It all pointed in one direction. Jacob Fatu. The locker room erupted. Some whispered setup. Others whispered guilt. But Solo? Solo didn't say a word. He just stared at the footage on a backstage monitor, arms folded, expression unreadable. And when questioned by Caleb Braxton about the incident, his words were chilling. Actions have consequences. Even for family. Those 5 words shattered the silence more than any siren could. But what if I told you that Jacob Fatu wasn't the one behind the wheel? What if I told you this entire thing, the crash, the footage, the silence, was part of something far more sinister? Because the truth is, Solo Sikoa has been preparing for this moment for weeks. Patiently. Calculating. Manipulating perception, power, and paranoia from the shadows. And Jacob Fatu? He never saw it coming. You see, this wasn't just about a car crash. This was about control. About Solo Sikoa sending a message, not just to the locker room, not just to the WWE universe, but to Roman Reigns himself. The message was simple: there is no bloodline without me. And anyone who questions that will be removed. But let's rewind. Let's go back to the days leading up to Raw. Sources backstage revealed that Solo had been growing increasingly paranoid about Jacob Fatu's rising popularity. Management saw him as a breakout star, stronger than Jimmy, more intimidating than Jay, more unpredictable than Solo himself. Whispers had started about a possible power-sharing dynamic between Jacob and Reigns. And Solo? He didn't like sharing. He especially didn't like that Paul Heyman, always the kingmaker, had begun spending more time talking to Jacob behind closed doors. So Solo did what he's always done when threatened. He set a trap. A week before the crash, Solo reportedly arranged for a decoy vehicle to be delivered to the arena. According to a production assistant who spoke under anonymity, Solo gave strict orders that a guest SUV needed to be moved into the garage for Roman's arrival. But Roman never came. That vehicle sat idle, out of place, until the night of Raw. When the crash occurred, Solo was nowhere near the loading dock. In fact, security logs show he was backstage, in wardrobe, speaking with a camera operator, creating an airtight alibi. But what he was doing was laying the groundwork for the footage that would frame Jacob, because here's where it gets darker. Sources close to WWE production claim the surveillance footage shown to officials and fans was not live security cam footage. It was edited, stitched together from two separate recordings, one of Jacob arriving hours earlier in a similar outfit, and one of the SUV moments before impact. Even worse, audio logs reveal that Solo himself made a late-night visit to the editing truck the day prior under the guise of reviewing Bloodline segment cues. Coincidence? Or premeditated sabotage? Jacob, for his part, was blindsided. The man who had carried the Bloodline's rage on his shoulders, who spilled blood for the family name, was now painted as a traitor. WWE suspended him indefinitely pending investigation. His locker was cleared. His name removed from upcoming match cards. In less than 24 hours, Jacob Fatu had gone from Bloodline enforcer to Bloodline exile and Solo? He moved on as if nothing happened, but there's more. The true heartbreak? Jacob didn't even get a chance to defend himself, because the moment he tried to speak backstage, when he stormed into Heyman's office demanding answers, demanding the footage be reviewed, he was surrounded by security and escorted from the building. And standing at the end of the hallway? Watching it all unfold, Solo Sikoa, expressionless. Cold. Victorious. The betrayal was complete, but what drives a man to destroy his own kin? Is it fear? Jealousy? Legacy? Solo Sikoa has long been the quiet one. The silent storm. But make no mistake, his silence has always concealed calculation. And now, for the first time, we see just how far he'll go to cement himself as not just the new tribal chief, but the only one left standing. As Jacob Fatu sits alone tonight, abandoned, misunderstood, possibly suspended, one question echoes louder than all others: can the Bloodline ever recover from this betrayal, or has Solo Sikoa just burned the last bridge they had? More importantly, was this about Jimmy Uso at all, or was Jimmy just the pawn in a larger war for power? Some believe that Jimmy was never the intended target. That the crash wasn't meant to end a rivalry, but to start a war. A war Solo has been preparing for in secret, and one that Roman Reigns, wherever he is, may not be ready to contain, because with Jacob framed, Jimmy hospitalized, and Heyman silent, Solo Sikoa now holds the keys to the kingdom. But kingdoms built on lies always crumble, and as the WWE Universe reels from this stunning twist, one truth becomes painfully clear: the Bloodline isn't being torn apart from the outside, it's being dismantled from within, and the man swinging the hammer is family. This is far from over. Because Jacob Fatu has nothing left to lose, and men with nothing left to lose are the most dangerous of all. Stop. What happens when a warrior is pushed too far? When his silence is mistaken for surrender, and his loyalty for weakness? Jacob Fatu had been framed, humiliated, and cast aside in front of the world. But he wasn't broken. He was just getting started. 3 days after Raw, while Solo Sikoa continued parading around SmackDown as the self-proclaimed head of the table, something changed in the atmosphere backstage. Reports began surfacing of production staff being told to avoid discussing the crash altogether. Security protocols were quietly updated. Paul Heyman, always a master of spin, declined interviews for the first time in months. Why the sudden fear? Because Jacob Fatu had gone dark, and when Jacob goes silent, it's never peace. It's preparation. Sources close to Jacob revealed he wasn't at home. He wasn't in contact with family. He wasn't answering his phone. For all intents and purposes, he'd vanished. But whispers spread fast in the WWE underworld. A trainer spotted him in an empty gym at 2 a.m. An airport worker claimed he boarded a private charter flight with no listed destination. And one anonymous member of WWE Creative simply said, "He's hunting." Because Jacob knew the truth. He knew Solo had set him up. And he wasn't going to the press. He wasn't going to Triple H. He was going straight to the source. In silence. With fury, and then, just when things began to quiet, something unexpected happened. At a SmackDown taping in Miami, as Solo Sikoa prepared to open the show with a State of the Bloodline address, a message appeared on the Titantron. No music. No pyro. Just black and white footage. A slow-motion replay of the car crash, but this time, zoomed in. The driver's hands, tattoo-free. Jacob Fatu's entire forearms are covered in Polynesian ink. The man behind the wheel? Clean skin, and just like that, the air in the arena turned to ice. The crowd erupted. Commentary went silent. And Solo? He stood frozen in the ring, his mic trembling slightly in his hand. He wasn't expecting that. No one was. And just before the footage cut out, 3 chilling words appeared on screen: "I'm not done." JF, it was subtle. It was surgical. And it was devastating. In 30 seconds, Jacob had flipped the narrative. The crowd turned. Hashtags trended. Hashtag justice for Jacob flooded Twitter. WWE officials scrambled, and Solo Sikoa, he looked over his shoulder for the rest of the night. The betrayal had birthed a new Jacob. No longer the savage protector of the bloodline. No longer the loyal cousin. This was a man reborn in betrayal, forged in dishonor, and bent on justice, and justice was coming to RAW. 1 week later, chaos erupted again, but this time, not from a crash. From a confrontation. It happened backstage during a taped segment with Paul Heyman. The wise man was mid-interview when shouts rang out behind the camera. Screams. Thuds. The sound of something shattering. The camera panned just in time to catch the moment Jacob Fatu launched a production crate through a steel door. Solo Sikoa was inside. Jacob didn't say a word. He didn't scream. He didn't posture. He walked in, fists clenched, eyes bloodshot. Security swarmed, but he didn't attack. He simply stared at Solo, who stood frozen in disbelief. The two locked eyes for what felt like a century. Then Jacob leaned in and whispered something the mic barely caught. "You made me the villain. Now watch what the villain becomes." And then he turned and walked out, leaving a trail of silence behind him that screamed louder than any promo. The WWE Universe was stunned. This wasn't over. This was a declaration. Later that night, Adam Pearce issued an emergency ruling. At SummerSlam, Solo Sikoa would defend his United States Championship against Jacob Fatu. Inside a steel cage, the crowd roared. The Bloodline's war had gone nuclear, but the question no one was asking? Where was Roman Reigns? Because up until now, Reigns had remained silent, absent from television, no tweets, no statements. But surely, he was watching. Surely, the head of the table couldn't stay silent while his house burned. Or maybe that was the plan. Maybe Roman was waiting for them to destroy each other, so he could return and rebuild the bloodline in his image. But before that reckoning could arrive, SummerSlam loomed. Jacob versus Solo, the framed versus the framer, blood versus blood, and everything was on the line. The cage match wasn't just about a title. It was about truth. About redemption. About making Solo answer for the lies, the manipulation, and the destruction of a family bond that had once seemed unbreakable. But Solo wasn't afraid. In the final Raw before SummerSlam, he stood in the ring, alone under the spotlight. The crowd booed mercilessly. Chants of "Jacob! Jacob!" rang through the arena. Solo waited. Then he spoke. "When you stand above everyone else, they try to pull you down. Jacob was never built for this. He's a storm with no aim. I gave him a place. I gave him a purpose. And he spit in my face. So I gave him something else, consequences." And then he paused. Looked straight into the camera. "You want the truth? The truth is, I did it. I set him up. I made the world hate him. And I'd do it again. Because this bloodline? It's mine now." The arena erupted in shock. Even Michael Cole fell silent. Solo had confessed, and now, the truth was no longer speculation. It was war, and as SummerSlam draws near, one thing is certain: Jacob Fatu isn't coming to wrestle. He's coming to destroy. To reclaim his name. To tear down the lie that Solo Sikoa built brick by brick, and when the cage door closes, there will be no escape, only judgment. SummerSlam. A name that echoes with legacy, with betrayal, with rebirth. And this year, that legacy was soaked in vengeance. The stadium lights had never felt colder. The air was electric, but beneath the roar of thousands, there was a dread. An unspoken certainty that something irreversible was about to happen. The steel cage loomed like a tomb in the center of the ring. Not a match. A sentence. Jacob Fatu stood at the entrance ramp, head bowed, fists wrapped tight, scars from weeks of silence and betrayal written all over his face. He wasn't accompanied by anyone. No Zilla. No Jimmy. No Heyman. The bloodline had left him for dead. Tonight, he rose alone. Solo Sikoa entered moments later, not with defiance, but with arrogance. He smirked, raised his United States title above his head, and muttered words no mic could hear. But the camera caught his lips. "You made me do this." As the steel door slammed shut, the bell rang, and what followed was not a match, it was a war. The first 5 minutes were brutal. No lockups. No grapples. Just fists. Jacob tackled Solo into the cage like a wild animal, fists hammering against his skull, blood spraying across the canvas in crimson arcs. Solo fought back with savage super kicks, crushing Jacob against the steel with spine-shattering Samoan drops. The crowd didn't chant. They didn't cheer. They watched in stunned silence. This wasn't sport, this was exorcism. Jacob fought like a man possessed. Tossing Solo into each corner of the cage. Spearing him through the ropes. Ripping at his own chest as if to tear the pain out of his soul. Solo, bleeding from the mouth, managed to claw his way back, snapping off a devastating spinning heel kick and slamming Jacob headfirst into the steel post. And then, amidst the carnage, Solo did the unthinkable. He reached into his boot and pulled out a chain, wrapped it around his fist, and smiled. The referee screamed. The crowd erupted. Solo charged, but Jacob ducked, caught him. Samoan spike. Solo fell. Jacob didn't cover him. He climbed the cage. Every step up the steel was a climb out of hell, but just as his fingers touched the top, the arena went black. The crowd gasped. The single spotlight hit the ramp. And the music hit. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, had returned. After 100 days in silence, exile, and shadow, the head of the table was back. He walked slowly, clad in all black, no pyro, no pose. The world held its breath. Jacob froze atop the cage. Solo, below, stirred. Roman climbed the steps. Locked eyes with the referee. Then he turned, and locked the steel cage from the outside. Gasps. Jacob's expression dropped. Solo smiled through blood-soaked teeth. Roman pulled a chair from beneath the ring and sat at the ramp, arms folded, watching, judging. He wasn't there to stop them. He was there to decide who survives. Jacob looked down at Solo. Then back at Roman, and then, he climbed back down. They fought again. Another 10 minutes of pure carnage. Jacob tossed Solo headfirst through the cage wall. Solo hit the floor, unconscious. The crowd exploded. Jacob stepped through. He had won, but he didn't raise his hand. He walked up the ramp, stopped at Roman, and stared. Roman stood. The two men, equal in blood, unequal in legacy, locked eyes. No words. Just breath. Roman nodded, but Jacob, he turned his back and walked away. Solo Sikoa lay broken in the wreckage behind them. Paul Heyman appeared on the ramp moments later, face pale, papers in hand, panic in his voice. The tribal court was being summoned, because after tonight, one truth had emerged from the ashes of steel: there is no more bloodline, only survivors. And the tribal chief? He's not coming back to rule. He's coming back to bury what's left and rebuild it from the bones. The WWE Universe didn't have to wait long. Just 5 days after that violent, unforgettable SummerSlam cage match, where Jacob Fatu walked out and Solo Sikoa was left broken, the landscape of SmackDown was altered forever, but not by another match. By reckoning. From the moment the cameras faded in, you could feel the shift. There was no intro video. No pyro. No commentary, just a wide shot of the empty arena. And then slowly, the camera panned up the ramp to reveal a single object in the center of the ring, the tribal necklace laid on a black cloth, surrounded by ceremonial torches. This wasn't just an episode of SmackDown, this was Judgment Day. Paul Heyman's voice echoed through the arena before the crowd had even fully settled. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, you do not bear witness to entertainment. You bear witness to justice. His tone was not theatrical. It was solemn. Heavy. Tired. He stood in the center of the ring, barely holding the mic steady. For months, you've heard whispers. Rumors. Lies. You've watched this family, this dynasty, bleed. But what you haven't heard is truth. He turned slowly toward the entrance, and truth is coming now. Roman Reigns walked out, the crowd erupted in a storm of sound, shock, awe, betrayal, hope, all rolled into one primal reaction. He wore no crown. No championship. Just black boots, a black hoodie zipped up to his throat, and a look of unflinching resolve. Behind him, no Jimmy, no Jay, no Solo, no Zilla. He was alone, and that said everything. Roman stepped into the ring. Looked down at the necklace on the cloth. Then slowly picked it up. The crowd quieted. You could hear a pin drop. Roman raised the mic. For over 3 years, I carried this company. A pause. I bled for it. I bled for you. I bled for them. He looked directly into the camera. And what did I get in return? Betrayal. He turned to Heyman. Tell them, wise man, tell them what Solo did. Heyman hesitated. Roman raised an eyebrow. Then Heyman spoke, shaky, slow. Solo Sikoa framed Jacob Fatu. He orchestrated Jimmy Uso's crash. He falsified surveillance. He silenced the crew. All to gain power. All to declare himself the next tribal chief. The arena gasped. Roman nodded. I trusted him. I brought him in when no one else would. I made him family. And he turned this family into a battlefield. Another pause. He looked into the hard cam again. Solo Sikoa is no longer Bloodline. The crowd exploded. Roman continued. And Jacob? He turned. Jacob Fatu did what no one else had the heart to do. He stayed loyal, even after being framed. Even after being discarded. And in that cage, he chose restraint over revenge. He looked out across the crowd. That is Bloodline. The crowd erupted in chants of Jacob. Jacob. And then, the lights dimmed. A Samoan war drum echoed. Smoke flooded the stage, and from the shadows emerged Jacob Fatu. But this wasn't the same Jacob who'd fought at SummerSlam. He wore a traditional black and red Samoan robe over his shoulders. Barefoot. Chest scarred. Eyes focused. He walked down the ramp, never breaking eye contact with Roman, stepped into the ring, and stood just feet away from the man who once cast him out. Roman extended the tribal necklace toward him, but Jacob didn't move. Roman looked him dead in the eyes. You want vengeance? Take it. Right here. Right now. He dropped the necklace on the mat and exposed his chest. Hit me. Jacob didn't. He stared, then knelt and placed his forehead to the mat. The crowd roared. This was more than forgiveness, this was legacy reformed. Roman helped Jacob to his feet and whispered into the mic. Welcome home. But as they embraced, a scream echoed from the crowd. The camera spun. Security guards were flying in all directions. Solo Sikoa had arrived, through the crowd, and he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Tama Tonga, steel chair in hand. The crowd shrieked as Solo dove into the ring, tackling Roman from behind. Tama took Jacob down with a wicked chair shot. Pandemonium. The Bloodline civil war had exploded into its next phase, and as Solo stood over Roman's fallen body, he pulled something from his pocket. A microphone. He leaned in, snarling, You had your era. This is mine now. Then he dropped the mic and walked off with Tama at his side. The screen faded to black, and in 3 chilling words, the graphic appeared, Bloodline no more. The echoes of that steel chair are still ringing. Roman Reigns lay broken in the center of the ring, and the WWE Universe stood frozen in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not here. Not on the night the tribal chief returned. But betrayal never keeps a schedule. And in a single violent moment, Solo Sikoa declared war, on Jacob Fatu, on Roman Reigns, and on the legacy they all bled to protect. Backstage, chaos erupted. Cameras cut to Paul Heyman shouting into a phone, demanding security lockdowns. Medical personnel swarmed Roman. Jacob Fatu, dazed from the ambush, fought off EMTs and tried to rise, but was met with a message instead, a smear of red spray paint on the wall near gorilla position. Bloodline is dead. Long live the kingdom. Tama Tonga. Solo Sikoa. The message was clear, the bloodline was no longer a family. It was a battlefield. And Solo had just declared himself its king. Over the next 48 hours, WWE corporate scrambled to contain the fallout. Press releases went silent. Triple H cancelled 2 media interviews. Rumors leaked that major faction realignments were happening behind closed doors. SmackDown and Raw locker rooms were divided, those loyal to Roman and Jacob, and those drawn to Solo's revolution. But the question haunting everyone, where is Roman Reigns? For the first time in years, Roman didn't show up to the next SmackDown. No statement. No update. Only Paul Heyman appeared, standing at the top of the stage with tear-streaked cheeks and a trembling voice. He entrusted them with his name, Heyman whispered. And they tried to bury him with it. Heyman didn't even make it through his full monologue. He collapsed mid-sentence. The pressure, the guilt, the collapse of the bloodline he once guided like a grand chess master, it had finally broken him. Commentary was left stunned. Michael Cole's voice cracked as he simply said, "There are no words." And then, the lights went out again. This time, a new vignette played, grainy footage. A camera panning over cracked earth. Chains breaking. A wolf pacing in the shadows. A voice whispered, "You've had your reign. Now comes the hunt." No face was shown. No name revealed, but the internet exploded. Was it Roman? Jacob? Someone knew. No one knew, but one thing was certain, someone was preparing to bring hell to Solo Sikoa's doorstep. Meanwhile, Solo and Tama Tonga were already setting their foundation. They began showing up backstage during Raw, uninvited, interrupting matches, beating down anyone wearing the Bloodline logo. Jey Uso was ambushed leaving the parking lot. Zilla Fatu jumped during a photo shoot. Even Kevin Owens, who once fought alongside the family, was put through a windshield during a dark segment. His only crime, defending Jacob in a promo. Solo was sending a message, there is no neutral. You're either with the kingdom, or in its grave. And in the shadows, Jacob Fatu was recovering. But he wasn't licking wounds, he was building. Sources began spotting him in closed-door meetings. Zilla Fatu was seen training with Jacob in a private LA gym, away from WWE eyes. Jimmy Uso? Rumors say he left the hospital early, signing off against doctor's orders. Something was forming. A new Shield, some speculated. But it wasn't just about defense anymore. This time, Jacob wanted revenge. At a house show in San Jose, he appeared unannounced, storming the ring after a Bloodline-branded promo aired. No entrance music. No warning. Just fury. He grabbed a mic and spoke only one sentence. Solo. I ain't family anymore. I'm your ing punishment. He dropped the mic and walked away. The next week, WWE made it official. At Payback, a new main event, Jacob Fatu and Zilla Fatu vs Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, tornado tag, no disqualification. The arena sold out within 2 hours, because everyone knew, this wasn't about belts, this was about blood, about betrayal, about war. But one man's shadow loomed above them all, Roman Reigns. He hadn't posted. Hadn't appeared. Not even his closest allies had heard his voice. But one insider revealed something chilling. A note left on Paul Heyman's desk in Roman's private dressing room. 5 words, scrawled in black ink.no signature.no seal. Just this, don't rebuild it. Replace it. What does it mean? Is Roman forming a new bloodline entirely? Or is he preparing to wipe the board clean? One thing is certain, whatever happens at Payback, this isn't the end, it's just the reckoning. Payback. The name never felt more literal. The arena lights were dimmed. The air carried the kind of tension that doesn't come from hype, it comes from fear. The WWE Universe wasn't just anticipating a match. They were bracing for a riot, because tonight, 4 men enter a war that's no longer bound by rules, lineage, or reason. Jacob Fatu. Zilla Fatu. Solo Sikoa. Tama Tonga. No disqualification. No tag rules. No mercy. From the moment the bell rang, it was chaos. Zilla Fatu flew across the ring and took Tama Tonga's head off with a steel chair before the match even officially began. Jacob and Solo locked eyes, and charged like freight trains. Every punch Jacob landed was a confession. Every elbow Solo